very warm welcome to all our viewers. Today we get up close with Vijay Arisetty, founder and CEO at MyGate, which is one of the foremost security and community management platforms here in India, a company which is looking at simplifying urban living primarily through gated premises. Thank you, Vijay, for your time. So let me begin with your backstory a little bit. You know, you were a former Indian Air Force pilot, also a Shaurya Chakra awardee for your work in evacuating victims in the 2004 tsunami. So was security and safety something that you were always attuned to and hence started exploring this idea?
Being in the armed forces, right, we were always exposed to the best security, right? If you see the armed forces, people who stay in cantonment areas, they're all heavily guarded, and, you know, there is a sense of security inbuilt into these kind of communities, right? And the first thing that I experienced when I did a shift from the armed forces to the civil world is I started missing that, right? And you know, more than me, my family started missing that, right? It was very easily my kids could go out and play and then they can come back, right? And that whole point was getting missed, right? And then we also saw that you know, 2015-14, India was adopting e-commerce, and we started seeing that, you know, commerce is coming to our doorsteps, and there was a huge influx of these external people coming into the community. You know, all of us who are staying in these gated communities, right, we are actually paying a huge premium to stay in these gated communities. And the primary reason all of us choose to stay in gated communities is because of that safety and security, right? And then we are seeing that we are paying so much of premium, and at the end of the day, we give that responsibility of the security to a security guard who is probably earning anything between 6,000 to 15,000 and is not very much motivated to do his job, right? And that's where I thought that, you know, the entire, you know, if you see the ecosystem in general, right, every space was going through some of the other technology infusion with this adoption in smartphones and, you know, various other technologies that are coming in the forefront. But security in general, which is a $20 billion industry and which is the highest employer in any, close to, you know, 8 million security guards are, you know, employed in India, right? And we realize that there is no technology to enhance their lives, and at the end of the day, their job is becoming more and more demanding because these gated communities are increasing and the requirement from the end user is increasing, and also this influx of external people coming in, right? So this led us to the thought of, you know, let us do something in this front to make the life of the security guard simple and also make sure that the external world is connected to the internal world in a seamless manner where there is an utmost trust deficit in the country, right? So we wanted to eliminate that particular friction at the gate, and that's how MyGate came into play.
Right, now looking at the market, how big is the market for security at gated communities, and would you say that it is underserved at the moment?
What we see, the number of gates in India is, there is no limit. Actually, we don't know exactly what is the count in terms of the number of gates in India, right? And we see that any gate that has got this high density, when we say high density, number of, you know, people per square feet, wherever it is higher and there is a security guard and there is a gate, our product is applicable there. Yes, yes. So it can be a commercial space, or it can be a school or a college, or, you know, it can be a university, or it can be, you know, SEZ, or it can be a residential gated community, or it can be a warehouse, or it can be a factory, right? Everywhere, wherever there is a process of validating the person, authenticating and validating the person, because that is the one which is introducing a huge amount of friction, right? People generally spend 10 to 15 minutes getting themselves valid. Like if you go to meet any person, right, you have to wait at the lobby where you're invited, right? You're invited and you have to write a lot of things in the registers, and it is a very cumbersome process, right? So we want to provide a delight at the same time, make the process very easy, and also, you know, make sure that the security that you're aspiring for is not compromised.
So currently you have a whole host of features, from managing visitors to maintaining attendance for staff, as well as payment of society bills. Would it be right to assume that the auto approval for e-commerce and food deliveries is something that is the most popular among these?
The way we look at this problem is, you know, these people are going through the gate and we have to give an experience for them, right? And the security guard who is, you know, at the least, or I would say, you know, these guys generally were the last to adopt technology, or, you know, the gate itself is a very complex place, right? Multiple types of people are getting inside, and each one of them needs to be treated differently at the gate. Like a visitor to an, you know, individual needs to be treated differently, a delivery executive needs to be treated differently, a water tanker needs to be treated differently, a maid and driver and nanny cook should be treated differently, right? So what we have done is, the security guard now doesn't know how do I treat each one of them, right? But what we have done in the front of it is we have made it simple for the security guard to do the same process for all these 4 people, But in the back end, the treatment is different, how the resident is reciprocating to the input that is given at the gate. For us, equal importance is given to all the visitors, right? For me, we want to make sure that the visitor is spending the least amount of time at the gate, right? Today, our average time is 20 seconds. We want to get that down to 2 seconds.
Right, you have a tie-up with a whole host of, these e-commerce partners and brands. How is that going? Is that something that's the, vertical that's gaining most traction?
What we see is, the scale at which they are operating. So one is, am I a big market for them, right? Like say, for example, if you see Swiggy, right? Swiggy has got, a lot of consumers for them in Bangalore are MyGate users. So it makes absolute sense for them to, integrate with us, right? And even, see, more than us, right? The companies like Swiggy, Zomato and all these e-commerce companies are equally, interested in the consumer security. So today, how do you interact with Swiggy? One is the app, and the physical contact is happening with the, the brand by the delivery boy, right? So they are also doing a lot of stuff in terms of how can I make that experience simple, right? So they don't want any third person who's not been background verified to deliver on behalf of, Swiggy or any of these platforms, right? So what we want to do is we want to uplift his, stature in terms of, okay, I'm also going and doing my job, so I'm getting a seamless entry. You as a resident, you're not getting disturbed. And we as a security company or a company assuring security, we're able to fulfill that particular piece, right?
Now you've raised your latest Series B funding round to the tune of about $56 million. How do you plan to use that? And you have really aggressive plans. So how do you plan to go about that expansion?
Most of our growth has happened organically, right? It's more with regards to reliability and the experience that you get at the gate, right? But if I go to a new city, right? Probably some of them have experienced that in Bangalore, but I still need to create that awareness there, right? So we will be using a lot of funds to create that awareness, to make sure that, our path of that 15 million people on MyGate is getting established. So today we have close to, 1.2 million households on MyGate. For us, the calling bell is now the notification which you get, right? And the team here is, working hard to make sure that we deliver 99% of our notifications within 20 microseconds, right? That's the key thing that we have set up, right? And now imagine we are doing today close to 1.5 million visitor validations. In a year's time, this will become 15 million visitor validations in a single day. The scale at which we operate and the infrastructure actually needs to be rebooted to cater for this scale, right? So a lot of money will go into that particular technology as well, right?
So assuming you manage to cater to a pretty large pie of the market, what next from here? What are the other services that you're planning to offer? Any sort of solutions that you're working on or new innovations?
See, one thing what we have in our thing right now, right? A lot of people, they start hiring their maids and drivers through MyGate portal. The person is already registered for a particular community, like a maid or a driver and a nanny, right? They are all registered to a particular community to make sure that they are coming in and out every day, right? So what we have done is we have made that information available to all the residents, right? And the residents are now able to call up directly to the maid and find out, are you available for work, and they're actually employing those people. And it has happened organically, so probably we'll do something in that front to make it more visible, right? Say today we only have, the way a maid is listed is she's a maid and her name is so-and-so and photograph is, or her phone number is so-and-so. But what we are doing is we are trying to enrich that information with regards to user created content that, this maid knows, Kannada, she knows Hindi, she knows English, and she probably, she can do much more beyond what she's doing currently for you. And then that becomes useful information for a service seeker, and that becomes very helpful for the maid who is actually looking for employment.
And how are you viewing competition right now? Because we have a big name, Reliance, coming into this space with JioGate. You have Adda, you have Located and No Brokerhood as well. But with Reliance coming in, would you say that you are validated in a certain sense of being in this space, or would you also say you will see consolidation down the line?
So for us, right, when we hear about all these names, we feel reassured that we are in the right space, right? And what we feel is the two things, right? Reliability and experience, right? These are the two things we don't compromise on. And to get to those two things, it's painfully difficult to get excellent as these systems, right? And I think these people coming in have validated the market, and in fact, what we see is they're educating the market. But at the end of the day, when you have to choose the product, These are the two things what consumers choose, right?
Would you say that you do have the first mover advantage in terms of picking up the latest trends and what's really going on at the gate?
And the depth of knowledge we have with regards to gate and how to make that gate successful is, of course, we have a 3 years or 4 years, since we have been thinking about this since long. We have that kind of understanding about this space, right? And it's not about you building 2 apps, give one to the security guard and give one to the resident, right? It is much beyond that. To make one gate successful, right, it involves an enormous amount of efforts, right? I think we are well poised, and the kind of organization engine that we are building in, we are super confident that we don't even consider anybody to be our competitors unless you are telling me that they are my competitors.
Now, before starting MyGate, you also had prior 2 startups, Ping Cabs as well as Kitchen Foods. So would you call yourself a serial entrepreneur, and how did those past startups do? What sort of advice would you give other aspiring entrepreneurs?
See, that serial entrepreneur looks sexy, right? But what I would say is, I was a risk taker, and most of the people whom we hire in the company also, right? We look at that element, right? Whenever you're creating a new category, right, there are a lot of unknowns, right? And people who are going to get associated with us unknowns are all risk takers, right? But what I felt is, you need to take decisions, and sometimes the normal path will not give you a lot of, excitement. You need to do something different than what other people are doing, and that gives you a lot of excitement because you'll be able to achieve something which nobody has imagined, right? So after MyGate, what, as an enlightenment for me is, solve problems which are, it's a big or small, but solve problems which are touching individuals multiple times a day.
All the very best for your expansion.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time.